Stroke deep center field. Torres chasing and is gone, and the party is on in the Hub City. And he launches this one into the trays. Goodbye. And add to it. Straight to the roost. And whoever operates the horn has been standing on it.
Hey, Golden Eagle fans, I'm Southern Miss Stadium announcer Jackson Walker, and you're listening to Nasty Bunch and Beyond.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome in to another episode of Nasty Bunch and Beyond. I'm your host, Dalton Trigg. I'm doing another solo pod today. My guy, DJ, he is still feeling a little under the weather and getting things back on track. And, you know, I finally got a chance to kind of sit down and collect my thoughts and to kind of recap my experience with the Round Rock Classic. And so I figured I'd just come on here and kind of give you my experience and what I liked, and kind of give a breakdown of each game and what the Golden Eagles were able to do over the weekend. It was a great weekend for them. But before we get into all that, again, I like to remind everybody, please be sure to go like, rate, and subscribe on all your favorite podcast platforms. Hit that subscribe button on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. If you don't mind taking a few seconds to go leave us a review and a rating on those two apps specifically, that really helps us out, and we greatly appreciate it. And then also be sure to check out www.si.com/college/Southern Miss if you want a ton of written material too. So I recapped every game from Dell Diamond at the Round Rock Classic. You can find all of those stories on there. We also cover football and basketball as well. And there's just a lot of stuff there. So it's Southern Miss Golden Eagles on SI, but the link, and if you're watching on YouTube, you see it in the bottom right corner here, but that's www.si.com/college/Southern Miss. Also want to give a shout out to the Top merch. If you want to get a hat kind of like this one, I got several compliments over the weekend on these hats, but specifically this one I had a couple people ask me about, and I'm going to tell you what I told them. Go to www.tothetopmerch.myshopify.com and use our promo code NastyBunchPod and get 20% off your entire purchase. So they got this hat, they got some retro stuff, they got some stuff on the way that I'm excited about. And be sure to go check them out and get you some very nice, fresh Southern Miss merch. So, okay. So first thoughts from the Round Rock Classic. Absolutely, like Coach Oz said, first class event. It was incredible. I mean, Dell Diamond is a beautiful ballpark inside and out. You know, outside they have this really nice tan stone layered look to it. You know, it's very South Texas. But you know, they had that going for them. Looked very nice. You have the nice Nolan Ryan statue out front at the entrance to greet you. You walk in. They had the little decals on the ground as you walked through the entrance of the stadium. You know, there was one with a Southern Miss baseball, baseball with Southern Miss logo on it. As you walk your way around the stadium in the outfield, they had those stone columns, and in between each column, they had each team's name inside of a baseball diamond with "Welcome to Dell Diamond" above those columns underneath the scoreboard. It was very nice. I mean, as far as, minor league stadium goes, it's hard to beat it. One of their hashtags throughout the weekend, and again, if you're watching this on YouTube, you see that picture in the bottom right corner there. One of their hashtags was best outside of Omaha, and I see why. I mean, it was fantastic. So the facility was nice. The staff and everybody there, very accommodating, very welcoming. If you walk around the stadium, in the left field, in the left outfield, past the fence, there's some grass where kids can play on and everything. And then they also have some rocking chairs you can sit in, which I thought was very cool. I've been to the Texas Rangers stadium and seen where they have something similar out in their left field. And that is, Texas Rangers minor league team. So you have to think that that's the reason for that being there, just a mini version of what they do in Arlington. But very cool. You walk around closer to the right side of the ballpark in the outfield. They even have like a little play zone for kids with rock climbing and stuff of that nature. Just very, very good experience overall. And it was very welcoming, very laid back. They had tables at right center field by the bullpen, which I'll get to that here in a little bit. But I spent a good bit of time out there at one of those tables during the second game out there. But again, it was great. I have zero complaints. Round Rock in general was very nice. I've been to Texas all my life, and I've been to Dallas several times, and I've covered the Dallas Mavericks and doing media stuff, covering the Mavs over the years. And so, I'm no stranger to Texas, but I'd never been to Round Rock before, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was very nice. If you do end up going to Round Rock in the future, a couple of food recommendations I have from the weekend. You got to try Round Rock Donuts. One of my buddies who lives nearby recommended that, and my wife and I tried it out. Thought it was great. And then there's Tumble 22, which is a hot chicken place that they started out as a food truck. They worked their way up to having an actual restaurant now, and they're looking to grow into several restaurants going forward. So some of the best hot chicken ever. I will say, though, you got to get on the spice level, just get the regular hot, because that South Texas hot is it's a little bit different than South Mississippi hot. So, but it was great. Enjoyed it. Okay, so getting into the games a little bit now. So the first game, played Purdue, started out down 1-0. Wasn't really anything going there until about the fourth inning. And then, the bat came alive. Russo, Seth Smith, I forgot. I don't have the exact chain of events in front of me. This is more of just like a going off my memory of all these games, because, I wrote the recaps and my eyes saw what they saw. But I do know, fourth inning, bats came alive, took a 4-1 lead. It stayed that way until things started to fall apart in the eighth and ninth inning. And next thing you know, it was a tied game at 4-4 going to the bottom of the ninth. That three-run lead was gone. And then with a man on second, Dre Barrett came up to the plate, and he hit the ball so hard, he belted it. I honestly thought it was a 2-run shot, Dan. I thought the game was over, and it was, 6-4. Game was still over, but it apparently didn't go over the fence. I was too busy celebrating to, know the nuances of that. But it was a absolutely belted ball to center field in the gap between the center fielder and the left fielder, and it scored the winning run from second. And so Southern Miss ended up winning that first game 5-4. It was an electric way to start the weekend. You kind of thought, like, man, how is it going to get any better than this the rest of the way, because of all the drama and it being a walk-off on the first game and all that stuff. But it was great. It was awesome. And a personal highlight for me, during that first game, I got to talk with legendary coach Scott Berry a little bit. Me and my nephew Clark Webster, he helps me every now and then. And so, we're walking around the stadium looking for different angles to take different shots where the net's not in the way and all that kind of stuff. So we were down the third baseline, or the first baseline rather. And we were sitting there past the net, getting some shots. And I just happened to look to my left, and Scott Berry's just sitting right there. So I was like, oh, okay, well, figure I'd just speak to him and, let him know what we've started here, not just with the Nasty Bunch and Beyond podcast, but with the Southern Miss Golden Eagles on Sports Illustrated and all that good stuff. So it was great getting to talk with him for a little bit. Nephew got to talk with him too, and that was my personal highlight for that one. So couldn't have asked for a better opening day. The weather was perfect. The sky was overcast, but it was a great temperature. Wasn't too cold, wasn't too hot. No rain the entire weekend, and it was a great way to get things started. Well, then second day, the atmosphere for number 11 Oregon State and number 20 Southern Miss at the time, it was absolutely electric. Both fan bases traveled well. Oregon State, we figured that some of their fans have just decided to take like a week or two off of what they're doing at home to just stay in Texas, because they're playing in another tournament in Frisco this coming weekend. So that may be one reason why they had so many fans. They thought, well, we'll just get our money's worth and stay, 2 full weekends down here. But atmosphere was electric. The fan bases were great. Both teams coming off of thrilling wins the day before. In their Friday matchup against Baylor, they ended up winning 3-1. And their Friday starting pitcher, Dax Whitney, was unbelievable. Had 17 strikeouts in that win over Baylor. He actually ended up winning the tournament MVP, which, I'm a little biased. I thought Joey Urban, or maybe even like Seth Smith or somebody from our side hitting the ball could have gotten that MVP award, but it didn't work out that way. I can't really complain too much about Dax Whitney getting it when he had 17 Ks in that game. It's one of those things where it's like if he was able to pitch in every game, maybe the tournament ends up going a little bit different. But that's why it's not like that. That's why you got to play 3 full days and see how it plays out. But Southern, we took a 1-0 lead at the start of that game. Joey Urban wasted no time hitting a homer in the top of the first inning to give us that 1-0 lead. And then not too long after that, Oregon State took a 3-1 lead off of a 3-run homer. And then let's see, we scratched one back, so it was 3-2. Oregon State was still leading. And then let's see, in about the 6th, I think it was the 6th inning, where Davis Gillespie hit a 2-run shot to left field and gave the Golden Eagles the lead for good, 4-3. The final score ended up being 9-4. Gilly was so excited when he was running around those bases. He just looked like a little kid. He was so excited, which you love to see. It's a kid's game, and he had such a tough end of the year last year, second half of the season last year, where he kind of wasn't in the lineup and was struggling a little bit. So it's been great to see Gillespie have the season he's had so far. Big part of this past weekend. He was great. Another thing I wanted to mention, which I was there, I was watching in person from Dell Diamond, but I saw some highlights get put out, or some video recordings put out on Twitter following the game. But Jack Duggan was on the radio call for that game, and I heard the call he had of Gillespie's 2-run homer, and it was awesome. Like he had, the game was already over we already knew the result and everything, but still going back and hearing his call of that Gillespie homer, he got me fired up. So shout out to Jack Duggan. That was great. You can tell the passion he has for Southern Miss, and not just but specifically Southern Miss baseball. And that was great to hear. So shout out to him. That was great. But anyway, so that was the momentum changer there. Gillespie giving the Golden Eagles the lead, gave them the lead for good, ended up winning very comfortably. Camden Sundstrom was absolute nails closing out that game. He came in and just shut it down. He got some people on base that, you kind of thought, well, he may be getting in a little bit of a jam here, but he found his way out of it every single time. And that was kind of the story of the weekend, honestly, because, even though Southern Miss is as good as they are record-wise and, hitting the ball and all that so far this year, you could argue that there is still room for improvement overall when it comes to the pitching. That's not saying that pitching hasn't been good. It has been, but as Coach Oz would tell you, up to their standards, the free passes, the walks, the hitting the occasional batters in big spots and all that, that there's been some of that there. And I think that's something that will improve as the season goes on. And I think it's a bright spot. I think it's incredible that the team is doing so well right now. And yet you still have this bulletin board material like, hey guys, we're not where we need to be right now. We haven't peaked yet, and yet we're already this good. So, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out the rest of the year and, how they can tweak that and continue to build as we move on into the rest of this regular season. But so Camden Sundstrom, he was awesome, closed out that second game. Personal highlight for me from that game, which if you follow me on Twitter, you saw me tweet about it, but I thought about saying something about it publicly as it was happening, but I was like, no, that's not how that works with baseball karma. You don't voice something as it's happening and risk jinxing it. But as the great Michael Scott would say, I'm not superstitious. I'm just a little stitious. But things were not going well for us in that second game. We were down 3-1 after that big 3-run shot. It was the bottom of the fifth. There'd been several frames where we just had gotten nothing, just 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And so bottom of the fifth inning, I was like, you know what? I'm moving. I'm leaving this seat. I'm going to go find a different spot, just kind of walk around a little bit. And when I got to center field, really right center field, close to where the Southern Miss bullpen was, there were a couple tables out there. Nobody else was sitting out there. So, I sat in the corner, and I got a pic. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see me above that express letter right above the 407 mark out there. And I just sat out there for the rest of the game. And, things started to go well, and me being slightly superstitious about stuff like that, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to keep sitting out here and see what happens. And next thing you know, had a 4-3 lead. My nephew Clark came out there to see me for a little bit, and then Sundstrom started to get in a little bit of a jam. I said, Clark, love you, buddy. You got to go. We can't risk blowing this, so you got to go, man. But I'll see you in a little bit. So I thought that was fun. It added to the experience, at least for me personally. So not saying I had anything to do with the win. The guys they fully had it, but how baseball can be sometimes. You got to do what you got to do. So that game was a lot of fun. It was way colder during that second game against Oregon State than it was the rest of the games over the weekend. The wind chill was crazy. It said it was like 60 degrees. There's no way. Like it felt like it was more like 45 or less. And I definitely didn't layer up the way I was supposed to that Saturday. Luckily, I didn't get sick. So, but it was a lot of fun. Eags got a massive win in convincing fashion over a near top 10 team. Number 11 at the time is what Oregon State was. So then the final day, basically we pretty much already won the weekend, won the tournament, but obviously you want to finish strong and get the sweep if you can. Came out early with a 2-0 lead on Baylor in the final game, never relinquished it. Baylor, just like in the previous two games of the weekend, Baylor had, a lot of runners on base due to walks, due to some hit batters. But the USM pitching staff, the pitching by committee approach, only gave up 3 hits the entire game despite all that traffic on the bases. So great overall performance there. I really like Thomas Crabtree in that game for a little bit. Now, he wasn't perfect. There were some walks and everything, but look, a lot of that, I was sitting pretty close, my normal seats for that game. I was sitting pretty close to where home plate was. And the umpire for that game his strike zone must have been like microscopic, because there were several times where I thought Crabtree was doing a great job and just throwing heat every single time. And he couldn't get the strike zone figured out because of, however the umpire had it framed out. So that was my opinion on that. Ended up winning the game anyway, but I really liked what I saw out of Thomas Crabtree, and I thought his numbers would have probably been even better than what they were had the strike zone stuff been a little bit more consistent. But he ended up with 5 Ks in that game, I believe. And just overall, I thought there was some great stuff we saw from the pitching staff over the weekend, especially from younger guys, like getting their first opportunity. They showed flashes, but just overall the depth. Like, that first game against Purdue, when things started to fall apart a little bit later in that game, Josh Ott came in and was great. Second game, bringing Camden Sundstrom. You have your starters, Colby Allen, Graydon Harris, McCarty English, and, we'll see how that goes throughout the rest of this season. McCarty English, he was great starting the game out against Oregon State. What I've noticed with McCarty English, and maybe this is just something that comes along with, the injuries he's had and the layoff he's had and, trying to work his way back to where he wants to be. But what I've noticed with him is, like, it seems like his control kind of loosens up a little bit after, 2-3 innings instead. So, he may end up just being like he may not be a guy that can get you a full, 7+ innings in a game. And that's fine, because he can give you elite stuff, I think, for, at least a handful of innings. But that's just my personal take of what I've seen the first 2 weekend series that we've seen from Southern Miss. So, but like I said earlier, it's not like the starting pitching has been bad, but it just hasn't lived up to the high standards yet that what Coach Oz is looking for, what this program is used to seeing. But I think we're going to get there. We just haven't gotten there yet. But took a 2-0 lead on Baylor in that last game, never let it go, ended up winning the game 5-1, got a couple of insurance runs there at the end of the game. And then J.W. Armistead came in and finished things off in the top of the 9th of that game. And it was over, swept the series, Round Rock Classic champions. It was unbelievable. Going into it, I had a feeling that we could sweep this, but, to have it materialize the way it did, it just had to be so gratifying for our players, our coaches, our just the program in general. And it's a shot of confidence. Not that they weren't confident beforehand, but you go out there and you prove yourself like this on a big stage against 3 high quality opponents, and that's something you can ride for the rest of the season. And so, I thought it was great. I'm going to do a separate pod for this game, by itself, but we already saw how something like the Round Rock Classic can lead to a confidence boost and carrying over momentum because, we just completely trounced Alabama in that Tuesday night game at the Pete, 14-4, run ruled them in 8 innings. So 2 grand slams, one by Ben Higdon, the other one by Kyle Morrison, train horns galore at the Pete on Tuesday night. It was great. But I'll talk more specifically about that one on the next pod, but I just wanted to mention how that momentum did carry over already. 4 USM players made the all-tournament team, including Camden Sundstrom. Let's see here. It was Camden Sundstrom, Joey Urban, Davis Gillespie, and Caleb Stelly. I personally thought Jerry Urban should have won MVP, but again, Dax Whitney was so good in that first game for Oregon State. It's kind of hard to argue with 17 strikeouts in one game. But Southern Miss, they moved all the way up to number 12 in the D1 baseball rankings, moved up to number 10 in the perfect game rankings. And given all the teams that lost on Tuesday night, LSU, UCLA, Oklahoma, there was a bunch. There was a handful of the top teams that went down, teams that are ranked ahead of Southern Miss right now. So, we come out and take care of business this weekend against Louisiana Tech. There is a very good chance next Monday when the new rankings come out that this team will be way up there in the top 10. So, I know none of that matters right now because it's still early in the season. But like I said, I think it says something that Southern Miss baseball has the record and the ranking that it does right now, despite, in my opinion, not playing their best baseball yet. And I think that's something that you can build on. I think that's something Coach Oz will preach to his team. He's probably already mentioned it to them. And I'm excited. I mean, this team is not just a contender to host a regional, host a super regional, get to Omaha. This team is a contender to win a national championship. And that's because of their depth, not only hitting, but pitching. Overall, top to bottom, the depth on this team is insane. And we still haven't seen the best of what's to come, in my opinion, because there are some of these guys, these younger pitchers that haven't gotten as much of an opportunity. I'll mention that in the Southern Miss versus Alabama recap, what we saw from some of those freshman arms in that game. But I'm excited, y'all. I think this is as good of a chance as we've ever had to not only get to Omaha, but to truly compete for a national championship. So I enjoyed it. I had a great time at Round Rock, and man, I hope they go back because I would be there if they do. But I think more of these tournaments are going to be happening for sure in the future, especially after the showing, not just that the team put on, but the fan base traveling. And, you know that they probably made a good bit off of merch sales and all that stuff. So I think we can see more of this in the future. But y'all, I appreciate y'all joining me. Let me just kind of ramble a little bit about my experience in the Round Rock Classic and at Dell Diamond, and had a great time, and I hope to do it again some other time. But for now, we will relish this win and this status as 2026 Round Rock Classic champions, and try to keep riding this momentum on throughout this season. And that starts with not only, I mentioned, beating Alabama the way we did, but playing a very good Louisiana Tech team that has only lost one game so far this season. So y'all, appreciate it. Y'all have a great rest of your day. Have a great rest of your week. And again, please be sure to go like, rate, and subscribe on our favorite podcast platforms. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And if you want to read all of my written work on all of these Southern Miss baseball games and other Southern Miss sports, please be sure to go to www.si.com/college/Southern Miss. Appreciate it, y'all. Have a good one.